One of the greatest discoveries in the history of science. It's the single most important chemistry reference there is, and it may not have happened without the help of one teenage boy's persistent mother. Dmitry Mendeleev grew up the youngest of 17 in Siberia, a vast region in Russia that takes up about 10% of the Earth's surface. It was from there at 15 that Mendeleev and his mother set out for Moscow in search of a better life and education for young Dmitry. But Moscow University shut the door. Undeterred, Mendeleev's mom brought him to St. Petersburg, securing him a spot in a good school. Unfortunately, she died shortly after. Mendeleev's teachers recognized his potential in science. He studied everything from Russian rats to rocks and minerals. When he graduated, he taught math, chemistry, physics, anything to pay the bills. Then, in 1860, Mendeleev went to a conference in Germany. In fact, it was the first international chemistry conference ever. They gathered to throw down on the irksome issue of atomic masses. At the time, there was no agreement on atomic masses for things like hydrogen, carbon, or oxygen. This made it really tough to figure out the composition of even the simplest compounds. For example, this is the chemical structure of acetic acid, which is commonly found in vinegar. In 1860, there were 19 different ways scientists wrote the chemical formula for something that simple. This left a sour taste in the mouths of many a chemist. Mendeleev left the conference determined to bring order to the chaos of chemistry. It became his obsession. He made cards with more than 60 known elements at the time, and he arranged and rearranged them like a game of solitaire. He started grouping elements with similar properties together. And as he arranged them, he noticed patterns that repeated periodically, hence the name, periodic table. When he came across elements that didn't match up, instead of throwing away all the cards, he did something extraordinary. He left a space. He figured more elements would be discovered one day that would fill in the blank. Mendeleev first published his table, complete with missing elements, in 1869, but continued to make several revisions and updates. Mendeleev predicted that the gaps would be filled by what he called Eka elements. Eka aluminum, Eka boron, and Eka silicon. Eka meaning one in Sanskrit. These elements would fall one below their namesake. Initially, the chemistry world laughed at him. You can't just conveniently leave space for that stuff that doesn't exist. 4 years later, gallium was discovered. Where does it fall? Right below aluminum. Boom! Mendeleev drops the mic. Same went for scandium and germanium. He predicted the existence of 7 others, all discovered later. Mendeleev wasn't the only one trying to organize the chemical universe, however. Just before Mendeleev, there was the very French Alexandre-Émile Béguier de Chancourtois.
Oui.
He developed the telluric spiral, which was largely ignored by chemists, though it did group elements in order of atomic mass. Other models were just bizarre. What is this? A closer competitor was Lothar Meyer. He developed a very similar table to Mendeleev's, but with only 28 elements. He also left gaps in the table, but unlike Mendeleev, Meyer didn't predict that they would be filled with new element discoveries. In the end, Mendeleev's system won out thanks to its predictive power and elegant simplicity. When he died of influenza in 1907, his students marched through the streets carrying a large model of his periodic table. Today, he even has an element named after him, an artificial radioactive element discovered in 1955 called Mendelevium, atomic number 101. 107 years after his death, new elements are still being discovered. Element 117 was just confirmed in May 2014. Until then, it was only considered theoretically possible to create it. All thanks to Mendeleev's original card stacking strategy. Leave the gap. Science will figure out what belongs there eventually.